Hey everybody, Martinez here again. I'm going to go and probably record 2 videos today. I haven't recorded in about a week, so why don't I do one? My first video is going to be about another game recommendation, and I figure why not? People kind of like it. I love board games, and I know that people think of me as a writing guy, but I really like board games and card games, and I thought I'd go ahead and put another one. And this one is a doozy. This one I just discovered. I hadn't heard anything about it. I just bought it on a fluke, and I really like it. It's a really original game with a lot of really cool concepts, and it's highly recommended. So that's the gist of the review. You don't have to watch the rest if you don't want, but you should probably if you are. Okay, the game is Earth Reborn. It's a game by, hold on, let me get that up here. Christopher Bollinger. I hope I'm saying that right. And Z-Man Games. Because Christopher Bollinger is a game designer. The only game I really know that he's designed is Dungeon Twister, which I really like. So that's kind of what pushed me over to buy this game. But what is Earth Reborn about? Earth Reborn's a scenario skirmish game where it's dark future, you know, blah blah blah, apocalypse, blah blah blah, people come out of ground, high-tech gizmos, but there's also scavengers. It's pretty standard in that way. I mean, they came up with a nice backstory, but it's not really necessary to understand the game. It's basically an excuse to have cyborgs versus cyborg zombies. But what makes Earth Reborn really interesting to me is that it's a game of skirmishes, but it's the first game I've played that kind of takes into account everything. This is a game that has rules for everything, and that can be a little daunting. So this is a hardcore game, but the way they designed it is actually fairly accessible. And here's the rules, which, to be honest, I have lots of games with this thick rule book, but if you'll notice, I don't have many that are just crammed with these rules. Now, a lot of these are examples, so it's not necessarily something you have to. It doesn't look as intimidating as it is. Although, I want to stress that this is a big game, and one of the things I like is the fact that it takes into account everything. There's rules for scrambling the enemy's radio communications. There's rules for interfering with the electrical generator. There's rules for destroying the safe room. There's rules for searching and finding equipment that work really well. I mean, you can actually search for something and have a pretty good chance of trying to find it if you know where to look, based on this sort of randomized system. And it plays. It takes a while to play. If on the box time it says anywhere from, if you notice, oops, hold on, I can't do this very well. It says 45 minutes to 4 hours, and that's true. I mean, a small scenario can take only real easy to play. A longer scenario can take a long time because it's a very complex game in that way. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about 3 minutes. I'll go ahead and talk about some of the stuff I like. Well, first of all, with the game, you get really nice components. You get these nice sheets to hide your tokens behind if you need to. And they've got references on the back, which again can be a little terrifying, but it all kind of makes sense. They have a really consistent iconography that works really well. You get figures, and of course, what's the game about like this without the figures? Because that's what it is. You get, like, here's the mammoth robot vehicle that the NORAD characters use, the good guys. But there's also, like, here's Frank Einstein, get it? And he's a cyborg dead man. And you got, like, your other heroes here. Yeah, like Nick Bolter, sort of the good guy commando leader. And then you've got these map tiles, and you get a ton of these map tiles. You get a ton of them, and they come in different sizes. I see, in shapes. Here's a L-shaped one, and they're all double-sided, so you get like, I think there's 91 titles total, but really you're basically getting like 182. I see. And again, there's little symbols for everything that tell you what you need. And once you learn what the symbols are, they're pretty intuitive. Like, say that, like, it means this uses electricity. It takes 6 damage before you destroy it, and it blocks line of sight. And then these little tags tell you where to stand if you want to activate it. And then this little tagline up here tells you how to what to do with it and what it does. So, and it's kind of language independent. They're trying to do, and it works once you understand what it does. It's a really great reference. see, what else do you get? Well, you get a ton of tokens. There's tokens in here that you need. Said. All right. So, okay, let's just get down to the nitty-gritty of the game. One of the things I like about this game is it's a scenario-driven game. You'll have two teams, and they have missions. But what gives you is a tremendous flexibility, because you don't always have the same missions. You don't always have the same map layout. You don't always have the same team or the same equipment. And so it's a lot of adaptability. It's a lot of playtime. What I like a lot is, even though it's a scenario-driven game, like other games I have, it's a game where you can spontaneously generate a scenario. It's like you don't have to. You don't have. There's a guidebook, but you don't need it. And in fact, you probably don't want to use it after a while, because that'll be kind of boring. It'd be like, okay, I've done this mission a million times. This one, you do different missions. It's even got one of the most interesting board layout systems, where you can create a map spontaneously. Two players can sit down and create a map. It can take a little bit, like maybe 20 minutes when you first start, but even then I think that not much. And once you know what you're doing, it doesn't take long, and you can basically create a really nice map spontaneously every time. New design, new things. You're never going to be playing the same game twice. You pick your team, you pick your weapons, your equipment, and then you take your missions and you go into the game, and boom, you're ready. And it works really well that way. I mean, this is the first game I feel like you can play a scenario and not, like, it's replayability for scenario games is hard, because it's kind of like, once you've done a dungeon, how many times can you do the same dungeon? This one, you can literally do it, because it comes with tons of mission cards, tons of characteristics. And like I said, one of the things that's very important that I really want to give credit to the game for, where did I put the cards? Oh, is the iconography. They really went out of their way, and it's crammed with information, but once you see it, it's not overwhelming. It's pretty simple. For example, here's a character. James Wu. And I'm going to go and just real quickly break down what they are. That's the armor rating. That's how much life he has. That's how fast he moves. That's how well he fights up close. That's like his limits of how many actions he can do. That's his leadership ability. That's weight. That's accuracy. And that's their science skill, their fix it skill, their search skill. That's how much it costs. And then they usually have, every character almost has like an action bar, which again, see how it's always consistent? Once you see it, it's pretty simple. And you would think that would be overwhelming, and it can be, but it's not really. Once you learn it, it's always the same, and it works really well. And another thing I really like is, for instance, is the figures. The figures even have data on them, which, this is crazy. Hold on, I still have trouble with this. All right, see how his base is color coded? Like, it tells you which direction he's facing, where he can shoot, how good he fights, in which area. And once you know what it is, you don't have to memorize it. You can just look at the figure and see it. And a good example would be, like, here we've got, Nick Bolter. See, he's got, see that white circle behind him? That's the only place he can't shoot. But otherwise, he's got a pretty good range. He's pretty good shooting everything in front of him. That's the red. And then everything inside of his orange is better. He's a decent shot, not great. And then the dark blue circle represents his combat ability. So he's pretty good up front, and then he's pretty good on the sides. And he's not very good behind him, which makes sense. But then, like, let's compare him to Frank Einstein. And Frank Einstein, if you notice, he's got not nearly as good a firing arc, because he's not that good of a commando. Like, he's got a huge blind spot behind him. But also, if you notice, his dark blue spot is a lot bigger, because he's kind of got a huge cyber arm. So the game actually takes that into account. And then you've got, like, this. You've got the Mammoth, which, if you notice, has like decent firing arc, but it's got a huge blind spot. It's got a decent combat rating, and so it works. So I mean, even that's taken into account in the game. And I've talked for 9 minutes and still can't do it. So what I really want to say, just to cut this video from going on forever, because you could really talk about this game forever, is if you are a hardcore game player, or even one who's interested in becoming a hardcore game player, this is a really good game. Really well designed, really creative, allows you to really explore a world. It's like, not only is it a great game play-wise, it's a great game story-wise. You can almost tell a story. You can almost see the adventure going on. But you can also play it as a straight game. It's just really, really well designed. I don't know how to say it other than that. A couple of caveats. One, it is a big game, that takes a while to play. So that can be disheartening. It supports 2 to 4 players. It's really designed for 2. They have some 3 or 4 player options, which I think would work fine, but that's not what it's designed for. They kind of threw it in there just to give people options, and I don't think that's bad. I think it works. It could work. And if you haven't, if you're easily intimidated or easily scared, this game's probably not for you. It's also really expensive. It's like an $80 game. I'm sure you can get it cheaper online. But again, it's got a ton of components, and it's such a unique experience. So again, this video, I'm trying to keep these videos shorter, so I'm not going to go on much longer. Other than, again, to highly recommend Earth Reborn as a great, original, wonderful game. I highly, I have not been this impressed by a game in a long time, and I hadn't heard anything about it. Okay, so anyway, that's it. Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoy it. And that's it.